just steered for it anyway. Full steam ahead. Why? Because you want to sink. You gave up.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Secret Matrix. Hi, please hold talking until we're ready to begin. So, hold on for the intro. Hello, everybody. This is Janet Kira Lessin. This is the Sacred Matrix, and my co-host today is Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today our guests are Penny Bradley and joel-lakey, and the second hour will be joined by Kevin-trimmel. And somebody's making noise because you. In between speaking, that would be great because we're getting a lot of background noise.
Is that
so, not sure, but whoever, there we go. Okay, so today we are going to cover, hold on speaking until I finish the intro. Okay, so today we're going to cover, just hold on 1 second, we're beginning the show. Okay, Dr. Lessin, are you there? Aloha. Hi, honey. Sound check. How are you today?
Excellent, thank you. Yes.
Okay. So, you and I have been investigating and having these various panels and interviewing all these people that are experiencers, and then we stumbled upon, I guess, the Secret Space Program experiencers around about the same time as Corey Good came out, but even before that, we had other secret space program people. So this has been 2 or 3 years. We've been getting a lot of secret space program people. So, but you know, what I was looking at is like if there's all these ongoing wars in space that go back to the dawn of time, is there any hope at all for humanity to experience that long-awaited, predicted golden age of Aquarius? And if all this fighting is going on, what does all this fighting mean? And who are the factions? Does anyone ever win? What is the purpose? Does anyone know? And while wars are ancient, there appears to be a modern faction with all the Nazis and their interactions with extraterrestrial forces. And so Snowden leaked a few years back that all rights are in charge of the USA and virtually the world. So what's
we
going
can't
on?
hear you, Jen. It's the mic.
Okay, somebody's got a lot of interference.
His phone just isn't working, Janet.
It's not working. Okay, I'll text him that. Anyway, so I was just putting a lot of these questions out to the universe, like who knows what's going on, who knows the answers, are the presidents in the loop? If so, which ones, and who are the Anunnaki, and are they in charge, or have they been usurped? And anyway, so that was what I had going into today's show. Do you have any questions that you want to have answered, or you want to express, Sasha, for tonight's show? And then we'll ask Penny, and then we'll go round table until we can figure out either getting Joel in or just waiting for Kevin at the top of the hour. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay. Well, you know, in terms of recent history, the United States lost the Battle of the Weddell-Sea in 1947, and the Germans who won that battle didn't immediately capitalize, because we were aided by the Serpo Greys to develop our own anti-grav, and they coached us and so forth. But the Germans won anyway by basically Operation Paperclip, which took the worst of the monsters who tortured children and murdered people and turned my people into lampshades and so forth. It took over the United States and all its corporate and governmental and judicial functions. And so right now the Nazis have won, and they have the corporate bases here and there. And this has been going on for some time. And they bring their way of regarding humans, other humans, as just things to be used to this secret space program. And so I think you can go even deeper. You can go into each one of us, how we have a Nazi within us that stifles our creativity, and we have to look at that too. But anyway, we're fortunate to have Penny, who's I regard as one of the wisest people I know, to give us a picture of what's really happening out there.
Yes, and so before I bring Penny on, I wanted to give the mic to a mad painter, Thomas Becker. So you've been tearing with us on this path for the last few years, and what kind of questions do you have that you want to put on the table for Penny and Kevin and Joel, or any of the main reason program people?
The main question I have is why? Why is this all happening? I mean, what's the purpose behind it? Is it control of us, or it just doesn't seem to fit right to me? Right.
Doesn't seem logical. So
well, yeah, there you go.
But I guess the universe doesn't have to be logical, but it's like I always think everything has to be logical.
Mankind can't be accused of being logical in a general sense, because we're not.
Right. That's the whole thing. Well, let's pass this to Penny. Penny, what do you think? Because you have the insider's track on this. You've been there. You've been there since you were a child. You've been back and forth between both worlds. You've been here as a human in an Earth life, and then you go into that. I mean, it's like living two distinct separate realities, because you're in this reality of this whole secret space program, and you're on your Facebook page, and all these people are coming forth. You probably know dozens, and I only know about a dozen. You have, I don't know, how many people have you been in touch with that now that you've been doing this for quite a while? How many people are you personally in touch with that have been involved in the secret space program? Just a guess.
Between the two groups that I personally admin, there are probably 2,000 people involved that are actually really veterans and not just curious. Those are the ones that I've personally been in touch with. Many of them have contacted me for, I call it peer counseling, but it's really, they really just want somebody to tell their story to. They've been shut down by everybody, their families, their doctors, their friends, and many of them are very isolated and alone and feeling like they're quietly going insane. And they have variations of the same story. And the details vary, but the basic story is the same. And many of them have physical marks when they come back, and which tells me it's a very 3D kind of experience rather than the multidimensional side. And there's just a lot of people out there that are waking up to this. When the final numbers come out, I would not be surprised to see it somewhere around 5 million worldwide. Now, the reasons that you guys were asking about, the reason for the SSP. I haven't talked about it a lot because I'm not sure which ET race it is. Different people blame different ones. But there was an ET race in the 1940s that laid claim to planet Earth as theirs. And we were not in a position to defend ourselves at that point. And so I saw it online, and it has since completely disappeared. But I saw where President Eisenhower had been read into this and he had basically blown his mind. My opinion of him was that he was a decent person who had just been through World War II and seen the most horrific things that have happened in the last couple of thousand years on Earth. And he was dealing with what Stalin was doing in Russia, which was like icing on the cake. And later on, there was also what Mao did in China. And he was dealing with horrors on top of horrors on top of horrors. And to find out that we had lost to the Germans in Antarctica, and that they were now actually running things behind the scenes, and that there was an ET race that had laid claim to the Earth and was planning on slowly killing us all off through terraforming. This was just more than he wanted to deal with. And the fact that he couldn't deal with it told him that the American people couldn't deal with it either. And that was the beginning of the secrecy. And that's why I can't find out which ET race it was, is because of all of the secrecy. Everything is so hidden. And if my memory of it doesn't come up, then I can't tell others. But this is where it comes down to, is there is an ET race that has laid claim to the planet, and the powers that be have been trying to figure out how for some of us to survive. That's what.
Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at that piece right there before we go on. So the stories that we've received is that back in the late 40s, early 50s, some say it was 54 in February, the year and month I was born, but we received, Eisenhower had those visits. And the stories are that the tall whites, or maybe they were the Anunnaki, and that they eventually made an agreement with the Greys. But we also have information that the reptilians, not the native reptilians that are on the ground, but the other reptilians have, this has always been a colony of theirs or something, so maybe they came forth. And Sasha, what are the characters, the possibilities? We have the tall whites, the Greys, the reptilians, the Anunnaki. Who else might be the
well, the people that they had the prior claim to Earth are the Dracos, the body that became Venus as it passed Earth, raised two continents, Lemuria and Atlantis, and a million years before the Atlans settled on Atlantis and became Atlanteans. The Dracos had spread out from Lemuria all over the planet with their beef, which was the dinosaurs. And for me, the number one candidate is not our local reptilians, or the ones in Agartha. Those are they've broken off from the Draco Empire, but it seems that it's the super Dracos. From all the accounts that I've been getting from Sala and from Gonzalez and Corey Good and those people, is that there's these grand Dracos from the Draco Empire. From Thuban is their capital in Draco. That's my candidate.
Right, and then we have the Anunnaki stories. But what do you think, Penny?
My best guess is that it would be the Draco Empire. Because they were one of the races that the German mystics contacted. And that was the Vril Society and Maria Orsic. The Draco were one of the groups they did, along with Aldebaran, and there was another group that later the Zeta Greys claimed to be the third group. But what we've got going on are all these mystics that are saying, "Welcome, space brothers," and having these CE5 events are welcoming in all of these races. There have been things in place to prevent us from being invaded. And all of these...
Okay, this is our guest. I'm going to put this on. Oh, I work on this. Go ahead, keep talking.
All of these mystics that have invited in all of these other beings have, because they invited them, they've overridden our protective system. So now, if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, ETs, come visit me," you don't know who's going to answer. Earth, the solar system is just outside a major space portal that handles traffic for this entire arm of the galaxy. We are in a perfect spot to be an empire capital because of that. But we're not advanced enough as a society, either spiritually or technologically, to handle that. So we've been under protection by a group that is known here as the Earth Council. I don't know what their real name is. but they have been protecting the planet from invasion for millennia, if not for millions of years. And the Anunnaki originally had to get permission from them to come here to mine gold. So if you wanted to know who was in charge of Earth, it would be the Earth Council. And the people
Penny,
known as... The people known as...
I'm sorry, I just got back because I had to try to get Joel on, and he's out of a location. Could you repeat that for me about, like, who is this Earth Council? Because I had to take the headphones off. I couldn't listen to what you were saying.
Okay.
Who are these Earth Council people?
They're a group of 5 ET races that are considered by the rest of the galaxy to be wise.
And what races are those?
I can't think of them off the top of my head. I would have to look them up and then let you know. But there's a council that has been approved by the rest of the galaxy to protect developing planets. Okay? The thing from Star Trek that they call the Prime Directive, that's real. Only the Prime Directive part of it is so simplistic compared to what the real galactic law is. When a race creates a new race, or as they call it, a life stream, that the creator race is responsible for that life stream until it reaches parity with the galactic civilization. That's why we keep having the Anunnaki around all the time, is because they created humans. They weren't the only ones. There were 22 other races with their fingers in the pie after the Anunnaki were done. So we've got 23 parent races out there, and they're all claiming to be our boss because of it. And the Earth Council is trying to keep them civilized. And
wasn't there intervention into our DNA even before the Anunnaki came here? Hasn't this been an ongoing experiment all the time? So who are these?
Homo erectus was a genetically created being, GMO, that was supposed to be... There were several races involved, 12 I believe, but it was supposed to be one strand of DNA from each of the races that were living here and fighting. And it was supposed to be a unity thing where the end result would be the descendant of everybody, so that they would finally stop fighting. And the Anunnaki found this being and turned it into what we have today as humans. And then other races said, well, this is a lab, so we can play with the lab rats. And that's what's been going on. No one has respected our genetic integrity. And we are on the cusp of galactic. And so there's a lot of crap going on in the galaxy about us right now. And I know Corey Good has talked about the Guardians. And the reason that they got the response that they did at the Galactic meeting is the Guardians are the military of the Earth Council. And they have stolen the asses of every race out there. So
you're breaking up a little bit, Penny. I'm not sure what's going on. Are you stationary or are you moving around?
We missed what you were saying about the Guardians. If you could go over that and speak right into the kids.
Yeah.
Well, I'm picking up a lot of static from someone else. So
okay, everybody mute when you're not speaking. If you can all mute when you're not speaking, and then Joel, we want to introduce. Well, let's just do this right now. So we're going to pick up about the Guardians, but Joel and Penny, have you met before? I know you're
No.
both in contact in the desert. Okay, so Joel, meet Penny, Penny, meet Joel. And Joel is part of the secret space program as well. So we can go in a couple directions here. We can have Joel come and do an intro so you get to know each other a little bit more, and then you guys can kind of tell each other a little bit about the background.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay, so Joel, go ahead and tell Penny and the rest of the listeners a condensed version of your existence in the secret space program, and then we'll go back to Penny, and then we'll go back to like a roundtable discussion and ask each other questions. Okay, take it away, Joel.
Okay, I was taken into the secret space program when I was 6 years old. Then I was transfused with reptilian DNA and another pink substance. I don't know what it was. And then overnight, I grew 8 feet tall, turned into 1,000-pound super soldier, half reptilian, half humanoid. And I had our training grounds in Utah, underground bases there. And then we quickly ascended to the moon and Mars, did our 20 and back missions there. And then I quickly climbed the ranks to become general-hendricks. And then I served directly in the Dark Fleet underneath the White Royal Reptilian. The Royal that I served, he had half his skull missing, and he had a crystal dome rock surface over his brain, which enhanced his psychic abilities. He was always on the bridge, and I was his right-hand man. I was his general that controlled his battalions. And as of today, I'm still serving in the secret space program. They take my consciousness out of my body at night, and they throw it into my super soldier avatar body, and we do our thing. So it's pretty much just the basic of it.
Okay. Hey, Penny, you have feedback, comment, questions? Penny?
That's pretty much in line with what I know that Kruger does, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Joel?
At what point were you transferred to Darkfleet?
Well, in my past reincarnations, I spend most of my time in reptilian homeworlds and in reptilian bodies. So I serve directly. They picked me because I'm family with them. I used to be part of a white royal family in a past reincarnation on another world. And so in this incarnation, when they saw who I was, they wanted to work with me because it's all about loyalty with them. So they knew they could trust me. So. Next question.
Okay.
I'm on mute for a while here, so you guys, Sasha, you want to talk, and Amanda, anybody wants to ask questions, go ahead and just kind of go popcorn for a little bit here.
So, what do you do there?
What do I do? Travel the universe with the Dark Fleet, invade worlds, defend worlds, liberate worlds. Most of it is time travel warfare. A lot of it is going to different reptilian worlds and training with their military groups. And they asked me for my opinion on if there's certain soldiers they train to see if I can have any input on how to change it or make it better. They're mostly about perfection. A lot of it is I'll do training programs with the new upcomers. I'll train them how to fight and train them how to use their new avatar bodies. It's just like the movie Avatar. Like once your consciousness is in a new body, it's kind of hard. It's kind of weird and different, hard for new consciousness to figure out how to use a body. Like they have to get used to it. A lot of it will be school training programs. I'll be like an instructor. Sometimes I'll train them. And then some of it's just like, most of it's just battlefield fighting. And you have such a lust for it because as a reptilian, you don't have emotions. You just have aggression and lust and just dominance. That's all I feel in the body.
Are there any plans to stop this war? Go ahead, Sasha, your turn. Go ahead, Sasha. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to know about your weapons and the weapons that your opponents had and how they work. And if you could you give us a little of that, I'd really like that.
The weapons that I personally use, there actually is a thing called a lightsaber. That's a real thing. But the lightsaber they have is it's about 12 inches long, the handle, and the top part can have a light laser that comes out of it, like kind of like a sword thing. But the bottom of it, if you flip it upside down and point at someone like a flashlight, and you hit this button, it will actually shoot like lasers and kill someone. That's most of the weapons we use. And then we'll use these backpack drones that we wear. It's like a drone backpack you wear, and it's connected in your mind. And these drones can fly off your backpack and go off and like use laser technology to kill people or blow up walls and stuff like that, or scan areas and tell you where things are, stuff like that.
How do you protect yourself against the enemy's weapons?
We have a shield generator, so everything is connected with our mind, of our psychic consciousness. So say I'm going up to an enemy, I can project a shield in front of me, and like a shield will project in front of me, and it will stop incoming, like let's just say lasers or bullets or whatever type of technology they have to shoot back at you. But most of our stuff is speed, so we'll just like run at them, and like we can teleport ourselves and like attack them and stuff like that.
Andy Bishago and several other people have talked about seeing whole piles of what look like either dead bodies or a bunch of blue uniforms on the surface of Mars. Do you know anything about that? Was there any mass killings?
Yeah, no. Everything is a color-coded organization there. So, like, I'll be on a not even on Mars, on other worlds. There'll be every reptilian army. There's like, so there'll be like the blue group, which is like all their armor would be blue. Then there'll be the red group, all the armor would be red. Then there'll be like yellow, white, green, and so on. They'll be for different factions. It's almost kind of like Star Wars, like how they have those clone troopers. So they have different colors. They're just for different tactics and use and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. So this just seems to be war for the sake of war. There seems to be no real meaning. What is the goal? What do they hope to accomplish? Do they ever negotiate peace? Do they ever hope to have peace?
Well, no. I've told you guys at last interview we did this. Just because I am a starseed, so I am a being half light and half darkness. But I choose to incarnate into reptilian worlds because I get along with them better. But there is like a faction of the reptilians that do want peace. Like we don't want to wipe you'll never wipe the reptilians out, but they want. Some of them do want peace, but some of them are holding on to the old ways and want war and dominance and them to be the number one type thing.
Okay, I thought I saw Kevin coming in, but I guess he's not here. He just dropped off.
Well, he told me to call him.
Kenny, oh, okay, yeah. Well, he said the top of the, or he told you to call.
He's here now.
He's here. Okay, Kevin, are you there? Hi.
Yeah.
We're here with Penny and Joel, who's explaining his story and taking some questions. So, let's see. Have you ever met Penny Bradley before, or Joel?
Yeah, I've spoken to Penny, and we've done some interviews together, so I'm familiar with her. I haven't spoken to Joel before, so and I'm sorry to interrupt. If he wants to just continue talking, I'll just listen.
Okay. Go ahead, Joel, and say hi to Kevin, and then when Joel's done, maybe Kevin, you might have some questions for him.
Sure.
So go ahead.
Do I have to tell my intro again?
I did read your bio, so I have somewhat of a background. Just continue where you were. Again, sorry to interrupt. Just continue where you were, and then I can ask you some questions later.
They were just asking me questions about like blue group military on the surface and stuff like that. And I was just explaining to them the different uses of color-coded army groups. And that was the end of the question. So they can ask another question and continue with that.
Look, I want to know about something about the Draco. Some people say that they are. Stuart Swerdlow says they don't need to have babies by sexual intercourse, but they do have sexual intercourse in male and female, but they're androgynous too, and so I get really confused.
Oh, no, how? Oh, trust me. As a reptilian, when I'm in a reptilian body, we have a lot of sex with each other, but we don't really do the baby thing. What most of it is just genetic. They'll create so if they want to create a sex slave, they'll create the perfect sex slave in a test tube type baby, and they'll born it that way because they'll genetically modify it the way they want. They want to make the perfect soldier, they'll just make it a test tube baby into the perfect genetically modified kid. And then what they'll do is they'll just clone their bodies, and they'll just transfer their consciousness into the new body once the old body's old or got killed.
Thank you.
Where are these experiences taking place? Are you on a planet? Are you in space? On a moon?
Every time I go to bed, they'll take me out of my consciousness and throw me into an avatar. So they'll take my consciousness out of my body. I'll be asleep for maybe 4 hours Earth time, but I'll be gone for weeks, months to years at time. It'll be always off-world. Mostly on planets, the surface of planets, sometimes in space. But when I arrive into my avatar, we're already on the ground, and then I see their spaceship land, and the doors open. These giant warrior-type reptilians walk out, and they come and greet me, and we look at each other with respect. And then I'm already there, covered in blood, I just decimated an army with my troops and stuff like that, and they're asking for an update. And because most generals, we fight alongside our soldiers out of respect and stuff like that.
Okay, Kevin, do you have any questions or comments or feedback?
Yeah. Just from what I've heard. So Joel, so you're saying they borrow your consciousness at night, and you're put into various avatars. You're not being put into the same clone body.
I have multiple avatars. I have a lot of avatars. I have one that's on Earth that we use to go into the underground bases. It's a half super soldier. It's not really a full one. It's more of a human super soldier. The one that's on the Dark Fleet is almost fully reptilian, but with a humanoid features, super soldier body. I can go off. I can also, because there's a third trait, I'm also a starseed, so I can also go into just my true form from my home planet and go do off-world things in my light ship, that has nothing to do with Earth or secret space program or anything, just other things.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to tell? Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, just one more question. So, you feel this is the SSP program you're involved in? You feel this is Dark Fleet, the Nakwaffen Nazi faction that's doing this?
I never seen when I'm working, it's never with humans. It's only with reptilians. It's only reptilian armies. When I work with the military that we work with, the battalions of control, they're always wearing full body armor, helmets and stuff like that. So I don't really look into see their faces or anything like that. My comrades that I work with, I know they're either full reptilian or mostly humanoid. There's a lot of reptilian features to them. What else? What was the question again?
Oh, I was just asking when you're serving in the program, if you're serving with the Nakwaffen Dark Fleet, Fourth Reich Nazi faction.
Well, I had an experience. Sorry to interrupt you. When you guys say something, some image will pop in my head, and I have to say it. It's my psychic thing. I had an experience 2 nights ago where I was on the surface of some planet, and I remember there was a battle going on, and I look up in the sky, and it's the Dark Fleet that just arrived, triangle ships and those teardrop black ships up in the sky, and the people that were invading, they were shooting back and shooting down the ships. I remember that, and I remember the ships landing on the surface, and then, like I said, the reptilians would come out, and we're trying to figure out how to win this battle. So that was literally 2 nights ago, and I was gone for almost a year, but only 6 hours passed on Earth.
Right. Okay. So one more question. So do you think like you're saying that some of your avatars, you're being put into a reptilian body. So would that be the Draco that are putting you in a reptilian body so you can work alongside them? Or is it actually the Nazis that are doing this?
To be honest with you, all my experiences, no, I don't know. All my experiences are like movie trailers. So it's not like it's just like one scene. It's like multiple scenes of an entire movie, like just like flickering in my head like a movie trailer. So it's like I'm trying to like put things together. The most common thing out of all of it, there's no emotion in any of it. It's like an emotional experience. Like there's no emotions. So you're sitting there doing your thing, and you know exactly what you're doing and how to present to them, like different ways of cultures and respecting them in different ways. Most of it is teleportation through portals, like stargates, and then most of it's just on ships, dark fleet ships. And I know I was part of the MELAB programs because I have the ringing in my left ear, which most super soldiers have. And I remember being in classrooms as a kid and looking in mirrors when I was in training programs of my super soldier body, what I looked like. I remember exactly what I looked like. I wish I had someone I knew that could draw it for me. And I don't know the basic names or anything like that. I just know they refer to me as General-hendricks. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, you want to explain to everybody your story, who you are? A little bit like a brief version, but
I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I'll keep it brief because I know Penny is already familiar with me. I'll do it for Joel's benefit. So I was abducted in November of 2008 by a white TR-3, and I did a 20 and back, as far as I can tell. And it was actually exactly a year ago today that I met with Tony Rodriguez in person near the U.S.-Canada border, and he's the one that really helped me develop a timeline and explain to me how the time travel worked. According to him, he was explaining how when he asked me, like, so when were you first taken? I'm like, well, I was 19 years old. It was in 2008. So he said, oh, so you're still out there. And I didn't know what he meant by that. But what he meant by that was because they create two of you. So my clone is actually still out there. And since it's 2018, I'm half done. So my clone's been out there for 10 years. So that's why I'm still getting recalls all the time, because we share dreams. And my role in the Solar Warden SSP program is to be an empath, but they don't call it an empath. They call it an ET interface. And basically what it involves is they just put me into rooms with various beings they want me to interface with. Some of them are beings they have treaties with. Other beings are captured beings, all various types. They're there for different reasons, and I'm supposed to interface with them and receive a telepathic download, and then I have to put that into a report. And I also have recalls of attending conferences with various types of extraterrestrials that the Solar Warden and the ICC meet with. And I also have recalls with Elena Kopolnik, who was an instructor on Mars. And the Solar Warden Navy faction actually outsourced their training for a lot of their personnel and to the ICC on Mars. And I remember Elena in particular as a facilitator that helped to train the people in my group. So I think that's a pretty good, just brief overview.
Yeah. No, I've had the similar experiences. I had when I was first taken and I was put in the classrooms. I remember giving me an iPad, and there was 5 options on the screen. They said pick one, and if I press one, that means I'm fully in. And I remember there was Mars. Mars was one of the options, and then another one was Global Elite. I remember clicking on Mars because I had a past reincarnation there, and that's where I started my training, more advanced training in these underground bases on Mars. There's the colonies of Mars, and I remember training on the surface of Mars. There's an small atmosphere there. I remember flying in these hover helicopters over these this area where all these that movie Avatars, the 2-legged and 2-armed robot machine where humans work and stuff. Each of them had a hut, and I remember some guy talking to me about like how do you think they look? How is there anything we can do to prove these units for battle? And then I talked to Ken Johnson about that, and he said he had the similar experience of flying one of those hover helicopters on Mars because he also was in the program too.
Wow, yeah, that's fascinating.
No, I remember being in the underground bases. I remember they had basketball courts. It's a base for like those colonies. They're slave workers, and everything had smooth surfaces and it was all white. And I remember I was part of like an infiltration program to keep an eye on like certain people that were just trying to start shit or start revolutions in the underground bases. And I'd always report back and like kind of be like a spy or infiltrator. That was like one of my first assignments when I first signed up.
Right. Yeah. Mars. I have a recalls of Mars. That's where things got really strange because at first, I was taken to a base in the Arctic. Don't remember too much there. I think it was more of like a medical prepping station. Utah. Yeah. So when they first take you, they actually typically take you to like, or at least in my case, they take you to like an underground base on the Earth, and it's like for medical prepping. And then from there, I was taken to the Lunar Operations Command on the Moon, and that was more like.
Were you in a super soldier body?
No, I was just in my regular body because I wasn't a soldier, and I was just a civilian.
My training program was the underground bases in Utah, where they first did the medical programs on us, and they like do surgery on my heart to get ready for like the upgrade to the super soldier body, and that's all I remember of that incident. So.
Right. Your role would have been a lot different than mine, and yet there's a lot of similarities in terms of the places they take you, like deep underground military bases, Lunar Operations Command. Like when they took us there, it was like orientation, and that's kind of where they kind of sold us like on the whole idea of like because they needed to get your permission, so it was like this sales pitch, and then like questionnaires. A bit of orientation about like what to expect based on the role that they had given you, and so it all kind of sounded almost good at that point. Well,
they do testing on you first to see what you're going to be good at, right? And mine showed leadership skills. That's why I eventually wrote the general. But I remember when they first created our super soldiers bodies, and they did the training in the underground bases, Utah. A few of us used to escape because we would actually like when they create us, they remove all of our emotion. And then they make us inert, and they only leave us with like aggression and discipline. But I remember a few of us would just like wake up and snap out of it, and we'd be like totally loose. I'd be like, oh my god, like I was just a kid like 2 minutes ago. Why am I this big monster now? We'd escape and run away, and they just hunt us down and capture us and reprogram our brains until we're finally perfect. Remember those incidents too?
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty intense. Especially being a soldier.
Because they would make us do things, right? They would test us. So once they created us and removed our emotion, they would give us assignments like, okay, jump off this 100-foot cliff and do it without hesitation. And they would start doing it, but then some of us would start waking up because we're starseeds. Our higher consciousness would wake up our mind, but hey, like this is not you, who you are, right? And then that's how they would they'd make you like kill someone. They would say, hey, snap that guy's neck, and you do it. You have to do it like without hesitation, and then they know you would be the perfect soldier, right?
Right.
Well, in my program, we were put through 5 years at Langley first, but that was in the 1950s, and they did the mind fracture first, which would end up with the disassociate that you're talking about with no feeling whatsoever, and then they would train you for your various alters to be able to do anything that they wanted you to do, including kill people or animals or anything with just your mind at the time. And when I was 9, I was sent to Mars, and the colonists raised me as basically an orphan. And so I was put through Shula at Aries Prime, and as soon as I was old enough, they put me in what on Earth would be called a jet, but it was actually a plasma fighter plane, and I was in a unit called the Valkyren that were women fighter pilots in the Mars. And I was there till 1990, and then I was a navigator on a Nachtwaffen ship, which is the German Fourth Reich fleet up there that most people call Dark Fleet. And
your phone's breaking up again.
We did material support for your unit, or one like it.
That's amazing stories, man. I love it.
Let me just ask this, very fascinated by this kill with your mind. The stories of Jesus is that he in Alexandria, he killed another boy with his mind and then brought him to life. He killed birds and then brought them back to life. And so what I don't hear from your story is you could kill people with your mind, but could you or they bring people back? Could you bring people back too?
Yes. My breakout psychic event after I was reactivated in 2013 was I raised a man from a coma just by sheer will. So yes, I can raise people from the dead as well as kill them.
Yeah, my experience in I have similar experiences. I didn't kill them, but what I would do is I could move them with my mind. Like, so if I was in a battle and I was like cutting someone in half with my laser sword or something like that, and if there was someone coming to left me, I could just push them with my mind, like 1,000 feet away from me, or I could like twist the arm and break it with my mind and stuff like that, or I could move metal objects with my mind. The same stuff like in Star Wars, like what Jedis do. You can easily do all that stuff. I never like physically sat there and killed someone with my head.
You can only do it because you're DNA modified.
Normal
basic humans cannot do this.
Oh no! Because when they made us, they strap you into this big machine of my human body. Then after they did heart surgery first, then they put these massive needles, one in your heart, one down your shoulder, and then you see these giant tubes one on each side of you full of red reptilian blood, because they drain your own blood, then they inject all this reptilian blood into you, which unlocks all of your genetic codes because we have reptilian within us, and then they put this really small vial pink substance inside of you, and then you drop and you wake up and you're 8 feet tall, 1,000 pounds, super soldier, and then you have all these new powers and stuff.
The pink stuff is adrenochrome, and it's made out of the adrenal glands of human children.
Oh wow! What does that do for you?
It basically, the way they're using it, it's a catalyst for the DNA modification. Now, my DNA modification was done while I was an embryo, so I have always in this body been the way I am. And they used me in my natural body in space. I was time traveled. And so any ability that I had when I was on Mars, I have now on Earth.
That's amazing. I still have psychic in this body. I have empathic abilities and psychic abilities, but only to do with me. So I can someone's name will pop in my head and I'll see them that day, or a feeling will pop in my head of somebody, and that negative feeling will happen within seconds, like before it happens. Like those are the things I can do in this body.
Well, when they released me to live among normals, they put in a firewall where that I have to believe that my life is in danger to be able to use my abilities.
Yeah, I believe that.
And I've learned how to override that if I'm needing to do something.
Yeah.
But I'm not out to hurt people, so generally I work in defense of the common basic person.
I must have something within me, because when my life was threatened, I was able to overpower, a man that was, much stronger and bigger and more powerful than I was in, normal waking life, and I put him on the ground. So, but my thoughts were not about self-preservation. But I just had a thought while you guys were talking that perhaps this kicks in because the avatar is important, right? So this form that so many people have invested time and money in has to be preserved as an avatar for Janet, the soul being essence. I mean, I'm just reaching, but I was trying to figure this out because it's always puzzled me how I could do this and why it happened. But there's been several incidents where it's not just adrenaline; it's way beyond what adrenaline can do.
Yeah, it's way beyond adrenaline. It's you're tapping into your psi abilities that were either genetically modified or.
Hold that thought. We weren't paying attention to the time. Me being one. Okay, back in 5 minutes. Hold tight, everybody. First break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Vrichton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, by all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix. And I'm Janet Carol Lessin with Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. And we have a panel today with Penny Bradley, Kevin-Trimmel, and joel-lakey. These are all secret space program people. And they all have incredible stories, and we're piecing together the puzzles, and we're talking to each other. And we're going to have to backtrack to some of that conversation during the break. We need to get on air here, get recorded, and everybody needs to hear about it and comment about it. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to the donation button and make your donation for the revolution.radio. And we do need your donation. And the Mad Painter, what's going on with our goal? How far are we away from it?
We
24th
have
of the month.
1884 and we need 2600, and it's not anywhere up to par. We sure appreciate it if you donate. Before you leave the chat room, please click on one of the ads because we get a couple of pennies every time you do that. So.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Sasha, add your commentary before we go back, and let's try to capture what was said during the break. That was
okay. One of the most interesting things to me was the stuff, Joel, that you were saying about loyalty. If you're disloyal once, you're dead, and so forth. And I'm thinking about the theoretical person Billy Jack, who stood up to Lieutenant Calley when he said, "Waste all those villagers." That's what makes me human, is that I'm not going to follow an order for loyalty because I have a higher consciousness. That's what I think.
No, that's the human side of you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the reptilians. Everybody wants to make the reptilians a demon in this play, and you're sharing some very good things. Yeah, go ahead.
You want to talk about that? Yeah, so as a reptilian, what a reptilian does in their mind, brain, thought pattern, that's a normal thing. So to say a cat eats a bird, that's evil to the bird, but to us, a cat is the most cutest thing in the world, right? So if a reptilian goes up and eats a human for sustenance, that's just him eating a normal person. That's just eating a snack. If a human eats a cow, that's just, us eating a cow, but to a cow, we're the reptilian, right? Does that make sense to you guys? There's no such thing as evil. It's just perception of what evil is. Yeah.
That makes sense, but you were. It sort of bugs my mind that you're still a human and you're being ordered to kill people you don't even know. Just there's a part of me that says I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I did.
Well, if in our understanding. So reptilian. So when I'm in my avatar, I have no emotion. So they say, example, we'll be in a gymnasium with other super soldiers, and they'll say, "Okay, General, show them a quickest way to kill someone." So I'll grab someone near me and I'll just break their neck and kill them, right? And I have no emotion to it. So if you remove emotion, there's no thought pattern to think about emotional of a kill. When you kill someone, you kill someone. But you're just killing their avatar. You actually can't kill a soul. So their soul leaves that avatar and gets put into another avatar. Make sense? So if you kill a human, you're just killing the human vessel. Their soul can go into another human vessel if it chooses to.
But aren't you violating the free world?
Service,
Go ahead.
In my service, they would be dumped into a regeneration tank and come back in the same body.
Oh, yeah, you can do that too.
With full memory of what had just been done to them.
Yeah, the best way to learn from mistakes is to remember them, right?
Exactly.
The best way to learn is to get beat up by someone superior. Learn how you got beat up, change it so you don't get beat up next time. That's just the best. That's called being survival.
Now, what we've got going on here is we've got a couple of folks that have never been military, and probably a lot of listeners who have never been military, who are just completely, totally aghast at this concept. But having lived through the Mars Wars myself, I was on Mars from 1964 to 1990, and during that entire time, the humans on Mars were in a war of their own creation against Mantids and raptors. And the Draco were our allies in this. And so, yes, you have this thing. You are told to kill someone, and you do it because it's your orders. You don't think, you don't question, you don't even think twice. It's you just do it. And people who have never served in the military at all cannot fathom this. People who have never served in a black ops military cannot fathom that you have been through mind control. The earlier generations, like mine, you went through 5 years of mind fracture and then training in how to use your abilities before you ever saw service. So they've made it where that they're doing it younger and younger, from what I can tell from what Joel said.
I guess the issue of permission comes up. Surely you're a little child. You didn't give permission.
I was an embryo when I was initially modified.
Yeah.
How?
So what kind of?
How does an embryo give consent? How does a 4-year-old, which is the age I was when I was kidnapped, how does a 4-year-old give consent? Joel said that he was 6. How does a 6-year-old give consent? I mean, really and truly, how is this possible? We have the age of consent in California is 18 for contracts. You're not allowed. Right. If you're signing a contract before the age of 18, one of your parents has to co-sign. So this entire process is based on lies. Children that young cannot give consent, and they're not being given informed consent in the first place. They're being told, "Oh yeah, can you help us? Can you help us?" They're not told you're going to be mind fractured and come back damaged, and you're not going to be able to feel emotions other than aggression or dominance. They're not told this is what's going to happen to them. And I'm sorry we lost Joel. Hope we can.
We lost Joel. We're trying to get him back. And I just wanted to add a comment, and then I'll pass the talking stick to you, Sasha. But the whole thing is confusing to me because I've had this going on since I was, in the crib, right, basically, and especially at 4, I was up on a ship. But my experiences have been positive. So
that you remember.
Just saddens me. It saddens
you remember.
me. I remember tons of my experiences.
I do think, Janet, the reason why yours tend to be more positive, there is. It's not just the human secret space program. There's various ET secret space program that bring in humans. So more positive beings, may have used you. It's like, whereas Penny, I mean, she was abducted by the Fourth Reich, which is about as negative as you can get in terms of the human secret space program. So there's degrees, and there's also different programs out there, and some of them are more like 4th and 5th density and higher ET races that still use star seeds that are related to them on a soul level.
Right, and then I have another friend, and hers has been positive, and she says, we've never even met a reptilian, and she's got this whole story of the lead to cheese with. Hi, we'll have you. Thanks we got you back. Okay, so just hang on there. So so I'm just working on a little piece of my puzzle. So I'm shocked when I hear all the negative stuff, but I hear a lot of positive things as well. And so I'm just looking at it, the whole continuum, the whole spectrum. It goes from extreme dark to extreme light. So I look at the whole
with Solar Warden in the middle.
Secret Space program thing. Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that, Kevin. My experience with dealing with Solar Warden was that they were number 2, so they tried harder.
Okay. Well, yeah, but it's because they have older tech, and the Navy is its own little faction. But what I mean by that, I mean caught in the middle. That's kind of more what I mean, because they're like, they're trying to be the Coast Guard of the solar system. They're trying to, protect our solar airspace with outdated tech. So yeah, they do have to try harder and be a little bit more creative and problem solve, because they can't really compete with a lot of the incoming craft that they come up against, and they also can't compete with the tech the ICC and the Fourth Reich have. So they're doing their best, and they have some allies that are willing to support them, like ET allies, but they're outgunned, outclassed, and they're basically running around trying to keep us under the dome as best they can to contain the secret space program and various conflicts, so that the primitive worker, doesn't become aware of this stuff. So I just mean they're just caught in the middle.
I agree.
Well, I've seen Solar Warden in some battles where they shouldn't have been, and
yeah,
and transporting Space Marines, and I mean, how many Space Marines? And we're talking U.S. Marine Corps here, fought in the Mars War, because we have Michael Ralph and Randy Kramer both talking about that they served in it. So there's lots of people all over doing all sorts of things that their higher ups are not admitting to. So I know that my crew, my unit on Mars, we had a captain who was Nachtwaffen, even though we were the Mars Militia at that point, and he served under a White Royal Draco who did not have the quartz cover over his brain that Joel talked about. But my captain was the one that ordered Randy Kramer's Battle of the Blender. And the Draco came and gutted him for it, because that was a violation of the treaty that the Draco had just signed, and that was a complete and total dishonor to the Draco that their underlings, Nachtwaffen, had violated their treaty that they had just signed. So yeah, my captain was dumped into the regen tank and was a much more humble person after that. But this is the way that the military in space operates. We're not talking about nice guys that go in and say, oh, we're taking over your planet today. No. They go through with weapons, and if you give them too much resistance, they blow your planet out of the sky.
I have another story about that if you want to hear about it.
Sure.
About our tactics we use. So when we invade a planet, or say another alien group attacks us, what we'll do is we'll go to their planet and we'll put on such a show, like such a gruesome aftermath battle, like we'll destroy their planet so bad. It's just like the same thing like that general back in the Roman days where he would invade a place and he would put everyone on spikes. Like, so like it was such a gruesome warfare that you would never want to screw with Rome ever again. It was called shock and awe campaigns. We'd make sure that no one would ever want to screw with us because we were so gross and deadly and disgusting of how we would kill them.
There's a short film on YouTube. It's called Raka, R-A-K-K-A. It describes kind of politely what I've watched the Draco do to planets who rebelled against the Empire. Every so often when people forget about who we're dealing with, I'll post that in one of my groups just to remind them this is who the Germans are allied with. So
I've had some memories of in my recent as being in general. I've actually rebelled against some orders that I was given to me because they would treat my soldiers like meaningless pawns. Like they would just like they would send the soldiers into a battle. Like they'd order me to send soldiers into battle. Me, well knowingly, they would just get slaughtered for no reason. And there would be some instances where I would look at my commander and I would say, "No, I'm not giving that order." And they would like severely punish me for it. But I would rather take the punishment than sending my troops off to get killed.
I was a lieutenant in the in Nachtwaffen. So I was an officer. And even though I was on the ship as a navigator, there would be times that I would stand toe-to-toe with my captain and say, no, I'm not ordering my people to do that. And I would usually be called a Missgeburt, which is, it roughly translates into an abortion that lived. That's what they tend to call me there when I act up. But I would tell them point blank, you have all of these assets that you have invested all this time and money and training, and you want me to order them to their deaths on a whim? Why? Yeah. I put it in terms of, you're always talking about productivity. Well, this is an unproductive concept. This is inconsistent with the productivity that you're constantly talking about, and you're wasting the program's resources. And they that's the only logic that they understood.
Yeah, that's why when I would disobey orders from the command, my troop, word would get out, and my troops were very fond of me because I always fought amongst them. I always, if we had to go into battle, so it's it wasn't always bad. There was some things where we'd go to a planet that was devastated by natural disasters, or tectonic plates would shift and there'd be a massive flood that would wipe out the population. We'd have to go down there and save the survivors. There was one instance where there was an alien group attacking another planet, and they used weather and flooding and tsunamis to destroy their enemy, and then after they would invade the planet with their troops. So we were on the ground, and we were fighting amongst the troops, and then I remember looking behind me when I was in the forest, and there was this massive tidal wave coming towards us. So we were running up the hill as fast as we can to get away from this tidal wave. And I ordered the troops to climb the trees. We climbed the trees really fast, and we get up to the top, and we see the water go underneath us and wipe out all the homes of these villagers and stuff like that. Then we climbed down, and then we're walking through the villagers. We're looking through the farmhouses. There's dead animals and horses, not like horses, but they kind of look like horses. And there was the smell of it. Then I remember going up to this mountain, and there was another military base that was the good guys, and we were banging on the door we're here to help, we're so and so, we're part of this group. They'd open up and they'd let us in. They're like, who are you? I'm like, I'm General-hendricks here. I'm part of this so and so command. We're here to help you guys fight against the invaders, and they would thank us for it. And they were working on a device to this army had one weakness. Their immune system was shitty towards some certain type of bacteria. So I remember they told me to go into this room, and they're like, what do you think of this bacteria? But do you think this will work to kill their biology? And I said, I think it might work. So I remember I covered myself with this type of bacteria, and all I had to do was go up to their army and get one of them to touch me. That would spread among them like a disease. And I remember standing there with no weapons in my hands, and their commander, the invading commander, came up to me he had two swords in his hand. He had bright blue eyes with pale white skin, kind of like a Walking Dead type alien with long white hair. He comes up to me, and I'm like, and I know he's a honor.
I'm sorry.
I know he's a. It's okay. I know he's an honor system. Yeah.
That's a perfect description of a tall white, and you're saying it's like a Walking Dead alien. Okay, go ahead.
Well, he just looked really battled up, like he was a veteran for sure. And I remember challenging him to a one-on-one combat fight with no weapons. And he and his army looked at him, and he said, I accept your challenge. And I just knew in my head all I had to do was get him to touch me. And so we started to wrestle and fight, and he touched me, and his skin started to dissolve, and then his troops' skin started to dissolve. They're all confused, and their entire army just dropped. And then everyone looked at me and cheered, hooray, hooray, thanks for helping. And then I remember we left after that.
Well, what Nachtwaffen had was a time device where we called it redialing or rephoning, and we would go back in time to before the incident and rescue everybody. So we had... That's what
we talked about last time, yeah. I call
we have very low personnel losses because we would do that. And we would even bring out slaves. Nachtwaffen had a different policy than some of the other groups, that we had purchased those slaves. They were our assets. They were of value to us, or we would not have purchased them. And we treated them with the dignity of humanity, or whatever their race was, because not all of our slaves were humans. But to be honest, everybody in the secret space program is a slave. It's just in a hierarchy system. So we didn't waste them. They were purchased assets, and they were as valuable as the ships or anyone else in there. They just were at a lower station. And I know Tony talks about when he was burnt. And Tony Rodriguez, I don't know if you know him or not, but Kevin and I do. And he talks about that he was burnt badly. And the reason that he wasn't rescued out of that was because what he did saved that colony. And it was necessary. Now, what surprised me was that they didn't dump him in a regen tank. That's what he deserved for his bravery as a slave. But the stories he tells, he earned freedom and should have had it, except that he decided not to press the button to destroy a planet, so they punished him for that. But it's vicious out there. It really is. There are wars that humanity has been dragged into that we don't even know who the good guys are. All we know is that we are on the side of the Draco, and that every single one of our colonies or bases are in Draco territories.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because they created us, so we are their property.
Well, there's a lot of dispute about who actually created us. That was what we were talking about whenever you came into the interview.
I know one thing about the Draco Empire. Draco Empire has been around for billions of years. The Draco Empire has been unchallenged, unmatched. They are the first. They are the first created biological beings of perfection. They're the perfect warrior. They never needed to evolve. They're the exact same they were when they first came to be. So it's very, there's no way to beat them. You can't beat them. The only way you can live amongst them is to help them grow their minds. Or just like we were talking earlier before my phone got cut off, people are talking about emotions of when someone dies. Emotions are a third-dimensional programming into human bodies to feel fear, love, hatred, obedience, and stuff like that. They program it into our bodies to make us feel those emotions, to make us scared of them, and make us obedient and fearful of them, right? Other avatars, other alien species that have been incarnated, there's really no emotions towards that stuff.
I'd like to just chime in for a second, if that's okay. About the Draco Empire. You're right. They have been the superpower of our galaxy for millions of years, because they were the first race to develop space travel. But the Syrian Empire, this was millions of years ago, but the Syrian Empire is the only empire to actually get them to come to a standstill. It was such a destructive war. It's known as the Orion Wars. It lasted 100,000 years. And eventually the Syrian Empire was on the verge of collapse, and even the Draco had been brought to their knees, and they created a truce. It was the only time the Draco had ever created a truce. And this is where you get the Anunnaki from, because the the Draco and the Syrians decided to create this treaty where the 9th sector, which is where our solar system is located, it's a key space corridor and passageway. They devised that they would create a race of hybrids, the Anunnaki, half Syrian, half Draco, and they would be the stewards of the 9th sector and our solar system, like in our prehistory. And that's I think that's why the Draco, yes, they're still very, very much in control of our part of the galaxy, but they do it through a proxy. That's why they're not directly in control. They do it through a proxy, which is the Anunnaki. And it wasn't until World War II, when the Nazis made the pact with the Draco, that they decided that particular faction of humanity, the Germans in particular, decided to work with them exclusively and basically, sold their souls to the devil, so to speak, so they could become a breakaway civilization and escape the consequences of World War II, because the Allies were, at that time, at the highest level, were actually very much supported by an opposing faction of the Anunnaki, more the Enlil side, opposed to the Enki Nordic side that the Germans were allied with, and as well as various types of reptilians and greys. So, and I just want to add something about World War II. The reason, like, that at the highest level of World War II, that's actually an Anunnaki war. What it is the Enlilites are the Jewish Semitic people. Enlil was the Lord of the Command. That's what Enlil means. He was the supreme commander and the of the Anunnaki military, and he was like Enlil, like a general. And he was the Lord of the Command. That's why he gave his followers the 10 Commandments, and they became eventually the Israelites. And so the reason why in World War II, the real reason why the Nazis waged a war and genocide on the Jewish people is because they were actually going after the followers of Enlil as Enkyites and and Ra Mardukians. So that's why they were able to make a deal with the Draco. And become a breakaway civilization. So that's why our solar system it's a very complicated situation, because it's not quite as simple as just, the Draco control us. There are some treaties in place and some proxies that they use, like the Anunnaki, that kind of complicated the situation. So that's why we have various factions with different agendas that tolerate each other, because everyone's trying to have access to the 9th sector and the 9th passageway, where our part of the galaxy is located. It's a very important space corridor. So it's almost like the Suez Canal. Everyone wants access to the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal. So that's why the Draco, the Syrians, Greys, all these subspecies and other species, they're willing to kind of tolerate each other in our part of the galaxy, because they want access to like the Suez Canal, basically.
Kevin, that's a fascinating story. What is your source of that information?
That's that would be the recall of the orientation at the LOC, when they were just giving us like basically the hidden history of planet Earth. But that's the Solar Warden perspective based on the ET beings that they work with. So I'm not saying it's 100% accurate or true. That's their perspective, and that's their propaganda and their history. And just because I served with Solar Warden, I'm not gonna say like what they taught us, is 100% real and everyone else's perspective is wrong, because I know that it is a point of view. And if you were to ask a Draco what's the history of planet Earth, and you were to ask an Andromedan what the history of planet Earth is, or whatever ET is, every ET has a different version of history based on their own perspectives. But yeah, to answer your question, like they taught us at the LOC the real hidden history of planet Earth and why wars were actually being fought, and because they're trying to sell us on the idea that we had to basically be like the Coast Guard and had to try to monitor certain craft coming in and out. And basically the only craft that were allowed to come in and out were the craft that had made deals with Solar Warden and also deals with the Fourth Reich. And they explained that those were the two sides of what you would think of as the Illuminati. And But we still had ET interlopers that came from unknown regions of space, unidentified ET interlopers that would come here to steal resources, or even just wanted to pass through our solar system to like take a shortcut or access the portal, that vortex by Jupiter that can, it's like a Stargate, and it can send you, it's like a wormhole that can send you to other parts of the galaxy. So having those capabilities of passage in our solar system and in our region of space, a lot of ETs come here to take a shortcut and also to do trade, but then also to abduct and steal people for the human slave trade, steal resources. So anyway, it's very complicated, and that's why Solar Warden is trying to run around, trying to be exactly like the Coast Guard and trying to honor all these deals and treaties. And so anyway, they gave us like this little crash course on the hidden history of planet Earth. They gave us the cell that you're basically protecting Earth against ET piracy, and we need to honor these deals that we've already made with certain ET races that they claim were helping us, giving us technology to defend ourselves. And so that was the cell. And so that's how they kind of got permission out of us, because we were, young people that thought, oh yeah, like this is the higher good. We're going to actually be protecting the planet. But the negative implication of Solar Warden, which I've talked about before, but the negative implication is they're actually like prison wardens. Like Solar Warden is a prison warden because they're the ones that are keeping us under the dome and keeping this all like contained, so that the average surface population doesn't see this stuff, isn't aware of this stuff, and they can keep it hidden. And then because the primitive worker, 8 billion people workforce on the planet is a commodity that is very much sought after in terms of, supplying genetic material, slavery, all the rest of it. And we just maintaining the infrastructure of the planet itself for the royal political elite. I mean, we are a commodity, the 8 billion workforce, just like gold and silver. That workforce is a commodity that is being protected and contained by Solar Warden.
Wow, I wondered why they used Warden in their name, Solar Warden, so that explains it. Okay, who wants to go next? Penny, go ahead.
The history that Kevin has is the history that Solar Warden has that they got from the tall whites. So that is the perspective that you're hearing. Nachtwaffen has heard their history from the Draco. Okay. The Americans who run Solar Warden are allied with the tall whites, with the Zetas, and with a set of beings that are extremely untrustworthy that are known as tall grays. And the tall grays actually eat people, just like the Draco do. The Russians are allied with the Tau Ceti, and they look like the character in Jupiter Ascending that ended up being the guard for the Queen character. They're tall. They have like a orangey tan color to their skin, and they have dog ears. So there are people telling me that Trump is a Tau Ceti because of his orange look. I'm not sure if that's true or not, and he would most certainly deny it. But that's the current rumor going around. But there is a group that is allied with the Chinese, and they look Chinese, but they're about 8 or 9 feet tall, and they wear blue uniforms. Just thought I'd throw that in since the blue uniform keeps coming up.
I wore, as my super soldier body, we would wear blue jumpsuits with a little badge on our left chest. I remember looking in the mirrors and seeing that.
When I was in the Mars Militia, most of the people wore a tan and orange uniform. Mine was blue. And I was told that I wore blue because I was U.S. Navy on loan to them. And I wore blue through my entire service, even when I was in Nachtwaffen, because I was U.S. Navy on loan to them. So there's a lot of interagency sharing of personnel. So just because you're picked up and trained by one, you could be working for anybody once you're out there. And there is an agency that is called the ACIO, and it's Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization. And it was originally headed by A.R. Borden, who I have mixed feelings about the man. And he's done a lot. He did a lot of writing about it in fictional form just before his death. So he's one of those people like Mengele, except that he developed a conscience before he died. So it's like, okay, what do you think of this person?
Do you think he's really dead, or did he just run for the hills and change his identity?
I suspect he ran for the hills and changed his identity, except that his daughter thinks he's dead. So.
Oh, you've talked to his daughter?
Yeah, I know her on Facebook.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah, that's like an adopted daughter. Does he have any blood relatives, or?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I know a lot of the Anuna think he's wonderful. Oh, for the audience, an Anuna is a Anunnaki starseed in a human body. And there are lots of them on the planet right now, somewhere around 120,000 Anuna on the planet right now. So there's
they're Anunnaki. They're Anunnaki souls in human bodies. Is that what you said?
They're Anunnaki soul fractals in human bodies.
Fractals.
Because an Anunnaki soul into a human body will fry both the baby and the mother. So they had to split into at least 60 fractals to be able to incarnate.
Makes sense.
So there's lots of them out here. But the Anuna think that A.R. Borden is wonderful because he talks about them as being these powerful, wonderful beings. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, guys. This was a man who was like Joseph Mengele, who got a conscience before he died or disappeared. And that somehow magically undoes the fact that he was responsible for my personal kidnapping, mind fracture.
Can you explain to people who may not know who A.R. Borden is, who he is, a little bit? Just brief. Why he's important in this discussion? Yeah.
He was the head of the agency that decided who got kidnapped for what. That's the short version. It's the only agency who has records on all of us, and of course is not letting any of them out. There was one of their agents who would give you a summary in Skype for free even, but he has stopped doing that. So there is no way to independently verify whether or not you were actually involved. And they are the agency who can do it, and they are affiliated with Wingmakers. So
are Wingmakers good or bad?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Good or bad to whom? That's what you mean. I don't like when people say, are they good or bad?
They are the
some
interface.
People think that they are the end all means, but other people are like, oh, I don't know enough to make an evaluation. The only thing I knew about A.R. Borden is that he met at these meetings, which included Anunnaki and a bunch of other species, and they made some decisions about the Earth and where it was going. And apparently, I got these meeting notes from, I think it was 2011 or something, and they decided to time phase shift the Earth out of the collision course, or it was a disaster course, disaster trajectory of Nibiru coming in. So it worked, and it was unknown if it was going to work or not, and it worked, and now we're apparently safe, and what we see in the sky is not really, it's just Nibiru's in a safe position now. It's no longer threatening. That's all I know about it. So the other stuff I knew nothing about.
He was in charge of the agency that decided who got kidnapped, and for what, and for how long. And so I have a lot of anger towards him because I was one of the people that was kidnapped.
Okay, we got about 15 minutes left, so let's figure out what we want to do with the last 15 minutes. So let's go round robin here. Sasha, we haven't heard from you in a while. What would you like to see happen in this last segment of the show?
I have an interesting perspective that is that this is a holographic universe, and everything is a fractal of everything that is in each of us, and we're in a fractal of everything. This being the case, we don't have to take opposition, but we can feel our oneness with and we can respect every being. And I know that I'm the only one among us that has this perspective from the way you're talking. But I think that ultimately we can have a peaceful oneness if we remember our origin in the sense of we're all part of the same continuum. We all affect each other. I get that's probably a non sequitur in this description, in this conversation, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, let's go back to let's see who wants. Anyways, raise your hand. Who wants to go next?
I just wanted to say I wanted to ask Joel if have you been in contact yet with James Rink on Super Soldier Talk?
No, I went to contact this year in July, and I met Janice and Sasha, and I started telling about the story, and they were the first people to want to hear my story and help me bring it out. So when you guys say all these names, I have no idea who these people are. Okay, well,
like Penny's done an interview with him, and so have I, and what James Rink went through sounds like very, very similar to like what you're experiencing, because he was being his consciousness was being brought into like various avatars and clone bodies, and he was also genetically modified in the program with reptilian DNA. So I think it's worth like reaching out to you to possibly do an interview, because I think what you have to say would really resonate with him. James Rink, he has a YouTube channel, Super Soldier Talk, and that's just a suggestion, but I think that would be an awesome interview.
Get him to call me. I don't know his contact information, so.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'll. I think I still have him on Skype. I can mention him to you and maybe set that up.
Yeah. You can get my number from Janice. So.
Cool.
Yeah. James was the first regular interviewer in the community to interview me, and he has a lot of interesting people on that he's interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
The first people that interviewed me were in a Facebook group, and I was they're probably going to cringe, but I was fed up with the stuff they were spouting and just started speaking my truth. And by the time it was done, the thread had 700-800 comments, and I got a message from the founder of the group, "You're going to be on my show Thursday. Be ready." And I'm like, really? Okay. And the rest has been history. That was 2 years ago. So, yeah.
Yeah. I just think I think for Joel to connect with James, that it'd be really interesting because Joel's testimony, it sounds just so similar to what James Rink went through, and so I think they would just hit it off because.
Is he still going through it, or is he retired?
He's still going through it, but he's with Kruger, which is a mercenary company, and I believe that he's a captain in Kruger. But the stories are similar. It would be doing similar stuff for a different group.
Before I go, how I was retired, and then a couple of months back, I actually started to get depressed that I missed it so much because all my memories are coming back. And then I remember I meditated one night, and I completely broke down to where I told them it's my free will choice to rejoin. And then that night, the reptilians came through my closet, and they were just waiting for me to come back. And then they took me back and put me back in my super soldier body in the dark fleet. And then I started doing mission work with them again. And then I looked at them and I said, "Oh God, I missed it so much."
Well, I don't miss what I did. I still have four altars active in space while we're talking, and I wake up in them from time to time. They're going on about what they're doing, and I just wake up at points. And by the way, your description of the laser knife, thank you, because that verifies what I used in one of those altars recently.
Yeah, I usually cut people's heads off. So.
That's kind of what I did. I slit their throats.
And it's not just humans. I'll go toe to toe with some reptilian factions, and I'll just level their armies all the time. You have to fight against whoever you have to fight against. So.
Well, I was on a ship that was being commandeered, and my commanding officer and I held off a crew of 11, and he took out the person who was trying to take over the bridge, and I held his 6 by standing in the corridor and killing anything that came through. And
that's amazing. It just reminds me of everything. Yeah.
The ET crew members are still scared of me, which has made for an interesting interaction.
Now, before we go, the listener should know about this. Isn't it interesting how you can watch TV shows like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Stargate, and all those futuristic shows, and Avatar? People got to remember, those stories came from what we did, right?
Yes.
Those are actual, real life, not science fiction. Those are real life stories that's going on today, and that's where all the information came from. No one wrote this stuff in a basement, so we just thought of it. This is really happening. It's just kind of like the world elites, throwing the truth at our face, but telling everyone it's science fiction, right?
Well, they cleaned it up for TV.
We just saw a thing about the Cylons, where the Cylons were on Battlestar Galactica were wiped out by a disease that the humans deliberately planted among them. It sounds just like your thing, General, where you touched the other guy and diseased his people.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Sometimes the most simple battle tactics work the best.
There are energy weapons, there are nuclear weapons, there are biological weapons, they prefer the psychological weapons because then they don't have to lose any soldiers.
I use the psychological weapons to control my weapons or my troops. I use the psychological weapons to move objects. It's more like an easy thought, whatever I think happens type thing.
And Sasha, what you're saying before about that, the holographic universe and everything having an aspect of the whole inside itself. Like I do believe that hopefully once this game gets played out, and because if everything has a soul, then we're all like individualized portions of source that see ourselves as separate, which is ego, and some species based on their genetics have lost that connection to source in the sense of always seeing themselves as separate, and they're stuck in survival mode mentality and ego-based mentality and hopefully eventually this game will play itself out and we'll go back to living in one harmonious universe again. But I'm so hopeful of that. But the game, I think, is far from being over because, of course, there's regressive races that feel the need to dominate, control, kill other beings that because they feel threatened by them on some level. But that's just
I can give you the answer to that.
And so one of the things that happens psychologically to people is that we have part of this killer inside of us that tries to kill other parts of ourselves to suppress and push down parts of our own personality, as above, so below, you see?
Yes. What I say is, as long as you are in 3D, there are certain aspects that are going to be along for the ride. You will have survival.
Yeah, the survival dynamic, absolutely. In 3D will always be present.
Kevin, what's
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're at the end of our time together, so let's do this again sometime. Much love and blessings.
Thank you.
And aloha. Have a great evening. Go ahead.
See ya. Kevin.
Thank you.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let's imagine if you glimpsed the future, were frightened by what you saw, what would you do with that information? You would go to who? Politicians? Captains of industry? And how would you convince them? Data? Facts? Good luck. The only facts they won't challenge are the ones that keep the wheels greased and the dollars rolling in. But what if there was a way of skipping the middleman, putting the critical news directly into everyone's head? The probability of widespread annihilation kept going up. The only way to stop it was to show it, to scare people straight. Because what reasonable human being wouldn't be galvanized by the potential destruction of everything they've ever known or loved? To save civilization, I would show its collapse. How do you think this vision was received? How do you think people responded to the prospect of imminent doom? They gobbled it up like a chocolate eclair. They didn't fear their demise. They repackaged it. It can be enjoyed as video games, as TV shows, books, movies. The entire world wholeheartedly embraced the apocalypse and sprinted towards it with gleeful abandon. Meanwhile, Earth was crumbling all around you. You've got simultaneous epidemics of obesity and starvation. Explain that one. Bees and butterflies start to disappear. The glaciers melt. Algae blooms all around you. The coal mine canaries are dropping dead, and you won't take the hint. In every moment, there is the possibility of a better future, but you people won't believe it. And because you won't believe it, you won't do what is necessary to make it a reality. So you dwell on this terrible future, you resign yourselves to it. For one reason, because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. Because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. Yes, we saw the iceberg,